My name is Zain Al Dawadi. I'm from Bahrain and I was living in Saudi for about 10 years. And then we moved to Dubai less than a year ago. So, yeah, for me, in fact, I feel like the story is a bit judgmental because it's really seen from, maybe an expat point of view,
Yes.
maybe a European, I'm not familiar with Serbia so much, but I'm assuming that he's brought a very Serbian point of view. For me, the walls are more protection, they're more privacy, and to also, I think for the writer, it's important to realize that the social structure here is very different than what he would find back home.
Yes.
It's really revolving around the family, and when I say family, it means extensive family. And when you speak numbers, it's more than you can ever imagine that you will have friends. So when you have cousins or second cousins, and the family starts at six, that's a small family. So with the grandparents and the in-laws, it's a very strong social structure actually. And in fact, in the GCC, there's a concept of an open house. Nobody locks their doors. You always have to accept guests. So for me, in fact, GCC culture is more generous and open than what you would find abroad, where you have to have an invitation to come into somebody's house. I never remember having, an appointment or an invitation to go visit a cousin or a grandparent, or to eat in their house, or to, even if she set the table for 20, if it's 30, it's fine. If it's 40, it's fine. So I would say the story comes with a lot of judgment,
Yes.
or maybe of a person who doesn't understand. But at the same time, I don't blame him, because in the UAE, I would say in Dubai in particular, because perhaps in other cities it's different. In Dubai, we all know that it's like a huge expat ratio compared to local.
Yes.
So in fact, you don't get the chance to interact with locals and to understand the culture in a deeper way. So what you see, or what I see at least in Dubai, is an expat culture. I don't see anything local in the country. Even the way people drive, or the way people speak to you, it's not really GCC. So I feel bad for him that he lived some time here and didn't get the chance to interact. But at the same time, it is what it is. It's somebody from the outside kind of reading the situation in his own understanding.
Do-
And privacy is so important.
Yes.
It's a very important concept in the culture.
It's about
There is a
privacy.
kind of philosophy that a relationship cannot exist, whether it's sister and brother, or family, or friendship, cannot exist without privacy.
Okay.
So it's very important to keep things private. It's very
Yes.
important. It's synonymous with respect as well.
Okay.
It's quite difficult, to be
Yes.
honest. Like, even for me, I'm Bahraini,
Yes.
and I know I've met more Bahrainis and Saudi Arabians in Dubai than I have Emiratis, but I do know a few, and it takes an effort to reach out, and it takes an effort to find your network. The problem I think that expats have all over the world, not just expats here in Dubai, even Bahrainis who are in France, or Bahrainis who are in any type of expat, is that you're very compelled to stay with your own type of people, and not just own nationality, but also within the nationality your own type. And this is it's nice because it gives you the comfort of being at home, but at the same time passes very quick, and you'll find yourself in a place for 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, and you haven't done what your checklist. You haven't met a local, you haven't been. So it's I would say in some places it's easier than others, but living in Saudi for 10 years, the expat community was very small, but I know the majority of expats did not even interact with one Saudi, and the ratio there is about, I think, 70 or 80% Saudis against 20 to 30% expats. So they have no excuse, and still you get the same behavior. So I would say it's the trap of being an expat, to find comfort in your own people without going out of your comfort zone to meet others, and to push yourself to kind of understand why do these walls exist. How can I open the door of these walls which actually the key is very easy because there is no key, it's open. So it takes an effort, I would say. It takes an effort, and I don't expect everyone to take it, but I feel sad that people don't. Any relationship between two people from different cultures often takes time because both sides are kind of don't understand the other, and you know the method of getting to know each other is very different. Some cultures are very open, you know, you kiss from the first day, and others it takes 2 or 3 meetings to kind of be inside, you know, the family. The social structure really revolves around the family, and that's how you have to position yourself if you want to be, you know, friends with a local. You know, there's 2 ways. Either you bring the relationship outside of the house, yes. So that is, you know, to go out, yes. To do the coffee shop, to do the restaurants, or you position yourself within the family. So that like that, you get invited to the lunches, to the dinners, and you get to know, you know, the parents, the sisters. But it does take time, and yes. It's not because anyone is unwelcoming. It just there's privacy, yes. And there's trust, yes. And that takes time to build. And of course, it depends on the family as well. But in general, I would say meeting anyone from another culture takes time, and it's very easy to have a superficial relationship, a very social, not so deep relationship. But if you want to take it to another level, to a good friendship, it takes time and an effort. And often people don't have that time because, you know, they're invited to the party with their good friends, or they're invited to an event with the social group of their own, you know, liking or their own culture. So it's easy to say yes to that, but to have a new friendship as well, you know, it's not easy, you know. So it's I would say, yeah, take the time because you never know what comes out of it. You know, start easy. At work, you know, you start with where you integrate with. Normally, an expat that comes into a new country, the first way that you integrate is through work. And if that doesn't work, then, you know, your community, whether it's religious or social, between kids, at school. Some of the first Emiratis I've met were through a birthday party that I went to with my daughter. So it was that simple. And I went directly to the mother. I didn't know her. Like, what's your name? Where are you from? And then later on, I discovered that her mother-in-law is from Bahrain. So I found a kind of connection, and that led to the next thing. But, you know, it took really a bit of courage to do that because, you know, the woman was organizing the birthday and she didn't have time for anything, but I kind of forced it, you know. So to find something in common, you know, so using the example of the birthday, I went to her and I said, you know, if I have a problem with my kids, they can't learn Arabic. What do you do with your kids? So it's, you know, it's embarrassing, but I would say start with something silly like that, and you really never know what you discover behind the person at the end. And you might have more in common with an Emirati than you do with anybody from your same, you know, culture, because you share the same, I don't know, interests or the same age kids or. You know, hobbies or something like that. So it's yeah, it could be interesting. Life could be more interesting. Sure, but with GCC culture, it's quite important. It's very, very important. I mean, there's so many poetic stories about it. There's the story of the Bedouin who killed his last sheep because you know, he had a visitor that he didn't even know. Did it happen? Did it not happen? I don't know, but it's quite symbolic in our culture. We have a story of a very famous poet that we visited his house in Hayel, Hatem al-Ta'i, very, very important, very famous Saudi Arabian Christian poet that was from a very famous tribe in Hayel, which is in the north of north of Saudi, who always remained poor because of how generous he was. So that's how important it is. Of course, I'm not saying give away your own, but this is the extreme, and this is what people use as an example. So it's quite important, and you know, it's something you give to people you love, even if the fact that somebody's invited to your house or somebody comes to your house is already important. That means they've already accepted you as a friend. So for that, you give back. So the effort you've made to come to my house, I have to give you something back, and even if it's exaggerated, it's fine, you know. So it's So it's, yeah, it's quite important. I think they're quite open, to be honest. I think in general, GCC culture imposes that you kind of socialize mostly with family, but that doesn't mean that you're not open. It's just that you're so preoccupied with your family structure that you don't have that spare time to kind of invest in other friendships. So in fact, when we socialize, if I was in Bahrain in my own, you know, social structure, the way we socialize is a bit different. We often, you know, the weekends are booked for family, weekdays maybe with friends after work or something like that. And really, if I don't have time, I'll bring my friends in the family. So I'll invite my friends during the family lunch, during the family dinner. And it's just a completely different social structure than you can imagine. Whereas in other cultures, it's very normal for friends only to have, you know, to have parties or to have dinners, and there's less time for that, I think, in GCC culture. That's what it is. I'd say like the people. I mean, it's quite important in the GCC in general. We do have history, but the history is not as tangible as you would find in other older civilizations, you know, in the north, like, you know, in Syria or in Iraq. You know, we don't have the buildings, and we don't have the art, and we don't have... So I would say the biggest asset we have is the people, and how they could be really kind, they could be very open. You can learn a lot from them, how easy they are to interact with, to work with. And, you know, I would say to discover that, try to not come with any judgment, to kind of discover from zero.
Great.
So over here, I rediscovered, you know, the island kind of food, and it's very nice, you know, the different varieties of fish and the different ways to cook them. And you can say I rediscovered my own Bahraini culture here, because it's more similar to what you find in Bahrain than in Saudi. And I loved Saudi, but I kind of missed that. I kind of missed the coastal culture.